All right, Bulls Nation, it's that time again. Joining us on the Xfinity mobile call-in line, it is the one and only NBA legend, three-point champ, and current analyst for the NBA on ESPN, our guy, Tim Legler. You can also catch him making regular appearances on All City Network's All NBA pod each and every week. Legs, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. I got no complaints. How you guys doing?
We got some.
Why don't we just start with the first one? So this is the first time we've talked to you since all of the action leading up to NBA's trade deadline day. Quick recap here. The Bulls send out Vooch, Kobe, Ayo, Kevin Huerter, Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips. The Bulls bring in Jaden Ivey, Anthony Simons, Colin Sexton, Rob Dillingham, that's four guards, a bevy of second-round picks, plus a couple of backup bigs in Yabusele and Nick Richards. Macro scale, what did you make of all of the moves that the Bulls made leading up to that trade deadline?
Man, it was honestly so much, it was hard to even wrap my head around it. It's basically, you're talking about a whole new team. I mean, that's really what happened here. And it's a lot of guards that have talent either on paper or had it before injuries, and you're hoping that some of that stuff's going to come to fruition. But look, he went in a totally different direction. So they clearly wanted a massive shakeup. They got it. You know, Vucevic was the guy I was always wondering, like, when would that eventually happen? His name, I felt like, was involved in every trade rumor there was to be had. Since he got there, he finally goes and gives Boston something I think that they're going to need. But if you look at all of the names you just said, like, who has really hit the ground running in the new place? Right? I mean, look at everybody. I mean, look at what they got back in return. I don't think it hasn't certainly happened for Dillingham. Ivy is hurt. Simons is hurt. Kevin Huerter's not really playing in Detroit. Vucevic is playing minutes in Boston, but I think, his best will be yet to come. Colin Sexton, I guess, he has played and kind of been a version of what he is at his best. So, but for the most part, a lot of action, but not a lot of impact so far, like across the board for all of the teams involved in these trades. Now, I do think that Kobe White's going to be a really nice addition for Charlotte. But even Ayo in Minnesota, I really like him a lot. But, these things take time before you find out what the fit is going to be. I don't think he's been anywhere near the player in early returns in Minnesota that he certainly was for you guys, because he found his stride. He found his confidence. He had a rhythm. He was gaining confidence every night. It's a different role. You go to a new team. You're acclimating to new teammates, new coach, new system. You're a little bit self-conscious about trying to fit in. Like, all of those things take time. So it's way too soon to kind of like pass final judgment on everything that happened at the deadline.
Yeah. Tim, looking at some of the guys the Bulls got back, is there any player that you yourself just like, oh, okay, that's a player right there between a Colin Sexton, Anthony Simons, even a Nick Richards or Yabusele? Is there anyone you look at and be like, no, the Bulls have something they may want to take a look at as far as in the future?
So here's how I look at it. Aaron Simons has a lot of talent. Jaden Ivey's got a lot of talent. I really like Jaden Ivey a lot. But I'm starting to get concerned now about these injuries. And you're talking about now this will be 2 years in a row, depending on how the season plays out for him the rest of the way. But you're talking about 2 years in a row potentially where he plays less than half a season. For a young player that had so much promise and talent, his second year in the league in Detroit, like you're watching a guy that like was on the verge of really breaking through. I mean, at one point he's a second leading scorer on that team behind Cade Cunningham, and he goes down. So I really like his talent. I'm starting to get concerned about the injuries. Simons is a guy that's got a ton of talent too, and he's put up big numbers in this league. But at the same time, I go, well, wait a second now, like post Damian Lillard in Portland, this was kind of supposed to be Anthony Simons' team. Like, we're going to now build around this young talent. Next thing you know, you look up, he's in Boston, and now he's on his third team. So that tells me something, right? And I, without being around him every day and knowing, I'm just looking at the talent, but I'm going, if the talent's there and everything else is there, he wouldn't be on his third team for such a short period of time. So that remains to be seen. I want to see more time, more minutes, more impact in Chicago before I kind of make a little bit more of a judgment. Dillingham is a guy I look at and go, man, God, I really liked him coming out, but he is small, and I worry about his efficiency, like ever, as a guard in this league. Is he going to be a constant 40% field goal shooter, 30% three-point shooter, and a guy that can get attacked defensively? because of his size. Like, I worry about it. It's young. He's young. I'm not going to say that the final chapter has been written, but it's a legitimate concern. Here he is, into his second year, and he hasn't really found his footing yet as a player, despite being a really high draft pick. So that's kind of how. Is there anybody else I'm missing from that group?
Yabusele is there from.
Yeah, look, and Yabusele's a guy. I loved him in Philly, and I think he filled the role that they wanted him to fill there. And he can shoot the basketball, and he's a guy that's a pretty good offensive player, undersized at center for Philly. But then when he went to New York, man, it just didn't work out. They just did not find a role for him for whatever reason, didn't fit. I do think the guy can play, and I think he can help. He's got some offensive talent, some shooting ability. Again, it's so early in this, so new for all these guys. Their heads are spinning with all these new environments that they're having to get used to in a short period of time.
Legs, earlier this season in one of our previous chats, we were asking you about how you saw a potential long-term fit with Kobe White and Josh Giddey as like the Bulls backcourt of the future. Obviously, that is no longer the case. They decided to trade Kobe instead. I'm curious, of these four guards that we're talking about here that the Bulls brought in via trade, Dillingham's the only one who isn't an expiring, upcoming restricted or unrestricted free agent this summer. Still got a year left on his deal. But as you've said, in the NBA, didn't quite get a chance to shine in Minnesota. Are any of those guys somebody you see as a potential solid fit with Giddey if the Bulls are trying to construct this young, totally flipped roster with Giddey in mind as somebody they just signed to a 4-year deal that he's in year one of? Or are there any guys that give you pause of, I don't see that as a great fit with fill-in-the-blank guard they brought in via trade with Josh Giddey?
Of the guys that they brought in, a healthy Jaden Ivey, I would love to see next to Giddey. I don't know if we're going to get that. Aside from that, I would probably say Colin Sexton is probably the most natural fit. In a lot of ways, Colin Sexton is a lot like Kobe White. I mean, they're very similar. They're combo guards that can be – you put the ball in their hands, they can go score and get their own, or they're perfectly fine blending in off the ball as well. So I think from his game and style standpoint, probably fits the best with Giddey. But look, man, it's such a small sample size. You're going to have to wait and see. Honestly, you have to wait and see. This is a massive overhaul of a roster. And, the guards are the guys that have most responsibility, handle the ball all the time, making decisions, fitting in. And when you have that many new guys trying to find their way, and some are dealing with injuries at the same time, this is just, you can't give this anything other than an incomplete grade. I know there's some people in Chicago that are probably upset with the way it's panned out to this point, because you're looking at the team, you think, okay, maybe we weren't as good as we thought, but at least we know who we have. Now everything has been flipped, and you've got guys that you've gotten back that aren't even available to play, or you're wondering about are ever going to be a part of what you got going on in the future. So I get the frustration, but again, the answer is it's just too early to make judgment until you start to see a plan come a little bit clearer on the part of the Bulls and how they're going to utilize these guys and who they think could be a part of the future or who could be somewhere else next season.
Legs, I've been wanting to ask you this question ever since the Bulls got Jaden Ivey, and we see he's kind of still dealing with the effects of that devastating injury, because you went through something pretty similar with your ACL. Can you tell us what the mental toll this kind of thing takes, like what you kind of had to go through? I'm sure there was a ton of doubt, because we've heard Jaden Ivey speak, and Matt and I found it a tad concerning just hearing how he spoke about how the old Jaden Ivey is dead. I got to move forward. Like, these things that he was saying were just a tad concerning. So can you talk about just that mental aspect of what you kind of have to deal with when you're trying to get back and be some semblance of the player that you once were? And
first of all, I'm going to agree with you. I was shocked by what he said. Like, that's, and look, at some, maybe he's being super candid, but at the same time, because of his age, I don't know why you'd go there. Like, if you're 35 and you deal with something like this, you say, yeah, man, I'm never going to be quite the same. And you figure out a way. How does my game now adapt, and how do I adjust to whatever physical limitations I may have going forward and still be a valuable player? Even at that age, you would think that way, even if you knew that you weren't going to be the same physically because of your age. But he's so young. I don't know what he's feeling or why he's thinking that. He's obviously dealing with a lot of adversity. And I think part of what he said also was trying to make people understand his perspective on life. By where his faith is so important to him, and he's basically saying that this is what gets me through, and that's the most important thing. Where he's centered is more important than anything that happens to him physically. I think part of that was the messaging there, but it was strange to hear a player talk in those terms that's that young and in large part relied on his athletic ability, right, to create opportunities for himself. So I was concerned about it. But I will tell you this. There's a dual grind going on at the same time when you're recovering from a long-term injury. One is just the physical toll of it's tiring, it's exhausting, it's painful. It's really difficult to just every day show up and make that your full-time job, getting back to 100%. That's one part of it. The other part is the mental toll, which is not only finding your confidence again to play full speed without thinking, because you are worried about getting hurt again. I don't care what anybody says. It's in your head because you never want to experience it again. So you're not really out there just playing free with careless disregard for where you're going, because that's when you're really playing loose. So you don't care about jumping and landing and changing directions and all that. When you've had a major injury, you do think about those things, and you round off your cuts a little bit. You're a little bit less you're a bit more reluctant to go full tilt in the open floor, right? And now somebody's trying to track you down and like all this stuff's going through your head. That's one component of mental. The other part is this. When you are rehabbing, man, you don't feel really a part of the team. Like and when you're now on a new team and you're hurt or unavailable, man, do you feel disassociated from what's going on? And that is probably the hardest part of everything, because that's all about chemistry and a feel for the guys and a camaraderie and like a trust. And right now he's probably feeling none of those things. So he's going through a lot. He's a young player, very talented. I don't like what he had to say, and I hope that's not giving us insight into what he's really feeling and really wondering if he's ever going to be the same player. I hope that's not the case, but I know why people would think that. I mean, those are some pretty candid words out of a player coming back from an injury.
Legs, as Bulls fans are hoping that Ivey can come back at some point this season and show us something so that the Bulls have some body of work to make a decision on a restricted free agent. You also mentioned earlier Simons and the fact that he now dealing with an injury. Bulls fans, I think, right now feel a little confused and or cheated. I'm wondering if you can shed some light on just the business end of these trades and players arriving at new teams and taking team physicals and everything that goes into that, because Kobe White arrived in Charlotte, had a team physical. The Hornets said, hey, this calf thing is real. We want one of our second-round picks back. And the Bulls had to send them one of those 3 second-round picks back in the trade. And now Bulls fans have said, oh, wait, well, Jaden Ivey's actually dealing with significant knee soreness and can't play. And that's the player we got in the trade. And Anthony Simons, it turns out, has actually just been playing through and managing the pain of a small wrist fracture that he's had since training camp with the Celtics. Like, how is it that all 3 of those things are realities, that the Bulls had to give something back in a trade while getting 2 injured players in the trade? Like, how does that work?
Surprising. Yeah, no, surprising the way all of it panned out, because, first of all, it's not like any of this stuff's going to slip through the cracks. Like, you know what you have in a player when you're sending him somewhere else. You know what he's dealing with. Nobody knows it better than that team. It's not like you're going to hope they don't find it. Like, that's not going to happen because it's so exhaustive in what they put you through. And look, in some cases, if it's a player that's a top-tier guy and he's so highly coveted, he's dealing with something. You get him in, your own doctors look at him. They go, yeah, man, like this legit thing and blah, blah. In some cases, you're willing to overlook that a little bit because of what the upside eventually is going to be. Like, you're talking about a guy that's like a top 2, top 3 player on your team that you've just acquired. Potentially, you're going to deal with it and hope that you would have never made the trade if you didn't think he's going to fully recover from it, but he's going to be dealing with it in the interim. Some of these other guys that are role players, like, you're maybe expecting that guy to hit the ground running and want to play. You're going to examine him as soon as you get him. And so for any team that sends a guy off, if there's issues there that aren't, I don't know if it's fully disclosed, even the right term, but maybe downplayed a little bit, they're going to find it. They're going to discover it their own, and they're going to go through a pretty extensive physical right away. And they're going to get all of the imaging that they need. They're going to talk to doctors. They're going to get a real feel what they put them through. And they're going to know right away how serious this is. And depending on where that player falls in your team hierarchy is going to be dependent on whether they're willing to just accept the situation, or they're going to ask for more compensation, or in some cases, even rescind the trade altogether, which we have seen in recent years.
Tim, we all know Billy Donovan is really, really good. He's a really great coach. My question now, though, is we're seeing him in a team, basically the worst team we've ever really seen him coach. I've never seen him on a team like this. Going forward, knowing how he coaches and how he approaches the game, Do you still think and believe that he is the right coach for the Chicago Bulls team during this full kind of reset?
Man, I'm such a big believer in him in general as a coach. So I go, well, you have to tell me what's the alternative. I understand what you're saying. I think the premise of your question is more like around Billy Donovan's coached teams that had a chance. They had a team that were like competitive in the postseason.
Correct.
Like that's when he's been at his best. And he came to this group. This is different now. This is taking on a different feel. This is like a longer term build. Mm-hmm. And so is a guy that's been around a long time, that's coached teams that were highly competitive with superstar talent on it, and in the postseason and in the mix and having a chance. Is that the right guy? All I can tell you is Billy Donovan is a great coach. He's a great teacher. He's a great communicator. I don't know, what would be better as an alternative, unless you get, some young guy that's just going to grow with what they have. I'm not even sure, first of all, what it is exactly they have. I don't know what exactly the plan is with this roster and what additional moves are going to be made over the summer. So until that stuff all plays out, and at some point, somebody can look at a camera and say, okay, this is the group we're going to go forward with. We finally, all of the pieces have moved over a period of a couple of years. This is the group we want. Then you have a better idea if this is the guy that probably should be coaching them. But I'm just a big believer in Billy Donovan in general, and I don't know how you just upgrade that simply. It's not a simple thing to do when you have a guy that's that good, and I believe Billy is.
Bulls Nation, if you want a quick break from watching our team, you can catch Legs calling a couple other Central Division foes. Cavs Pistons happening this Friday night on ESPN. Legs will be there on the call. You can also catch him, of course, with his regular appearances on All City's All NBA podcast. Legs, we appreciate the time as always, man. Look forward to the next one.
You got it, guys. Anytime.